Discrimination, that, you know, the resources that the world has to offer, and anybody that's inferior to me needs to be exterminated. Exactly. That is horrific.
Right. And anybody that's ever been around a Down syndrome child know how loving the child, how affectionate the child is, and they know how beautiful these children are as far as love and affection. And I've even seen people who had a Down syndrome child, they thought, well, the child's not going to be able to even communicate and talk. And now they're older. Some of them are little teenagers now. And they still may have a little difficulty in their communication, but they're still just as caring and loving as ever.
Oh, and absolutely, Dr. Hunter. And they have an inner knowledge of other people. It's not just that they can articulate the words phonetically. And my daughter reads. She's read 2 of the Harry Potter books. What's amazing to me is that they know you from the inside out, and for that, and at the same time, they're very forgiving of all the different foibles and imperfections that we have. So we're eliminating a group of people who, more than any other that God has given us, actually embody the paradigm, love your neighbor as yourself. Right. They are a witness. They are God's gift to the world. They are a witness in the world to what it really means to follow Christ. And I'm just amazed that we think that by eliminating them, we have a better world or a better family.
Well, that's the absolute idiocy of man right there.
Mm-hmm. First of all, we have no right to take their life, but second of all, how many times is that test wrong? False positive.
It doesn't matter, right or wrong.
It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. I've received over 100 emails that I mean, every day I get a new email about this article, and only one of all of them has been negative. The rest have been the most edifying, sharing accounts of these people who have children, really handicapped children,
right?
And
exactly.
how these other children are such joys to the family. And
right.
You know, some people have adopted 2 or 3 other Down syndrome children from across the world. Because they just find them just so wonderfully.
Well, actually, there's a waiting list for Down syndrome children.
Is that right?
Yes, there is. National Council of
goodness.
Adoption says there's a waiting list for children with Down syndrome.
Oh, my goodness.
But anyway, Virginia, we really appreciate the article that you wrote, and we appreciate what you're doing, and just want to tell you to support your, obviously support your family, and that what you're doing is a great thing.
Well, what you're all doing is wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us today.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Those are amazing stories that,
What is also encouraging me, this is a professor.
Yep.
And, when
she's at the University of Dallas.
And any time a person's like that, my commendations to her, because that means there's hope for the nation, for those who are helping graduate students. Because here's somebody that's really living a life that says, by the way, I'm not going to discriminate. Right. I am going to take a right course. I am concerned about the culture. I am concerned about people who others may look down upon. For a college professor, that says a lot for this nation.
Absolutely, it does. Well, we've got another issue here I want to bring up. There are several movies out right now that are...
Hooray for Hollywood.
Yeah, hooray for Hollywood. That are dealing with the issue of unplanned pregnancies. And the interesting thing here is, and good for the pro-life movement, is that many of these are actually kind of, although they're not saying they're pro-life, they're taking a pro-life position. Abortion is not mentioned. They show that the baby is a child. They show sonograms, all these sort of things. There's another movie that's going to debut nationally in August called Bella that's already been screened by people around the country.
I've seen that movie. That's a phenomenal pro-life movie. Excellent.
But some of these are just normal Hollywood movies in which these pregnancy things, and some of them, the movies are pretty raunchy, but the message in them, things like Knocked Up and other movies, they're not the movies that you want to take your kids to, but they keep the baby.
They're promoting a culture of life.
Exactly. The interesting thing here is one of our pro-abort buddies doesn't like this trend. Washington Post film critic Ann Hornaday wants abortion portrayed in these movies as on an equal plane with adoption or keeping the baby or whatever. And she's upset. She says that the word abortion isn't even mentioned in these movies. And here's her quote. "I think it's shocking that the subject of abortion as a choice has been eliminated from the discussion. The topic isn't even on the table. And she thinks this undermines Hollywood's claim as having a liberal agenda, which is nonsense. It does not undermine it. But these people always tell the lie that they want women to have choices. Now, a movie comes out where a woman doesn't even consider abortion, and that's not good enough. She's got to consider abortion. It's got to be brought up and discussed in these movies. And, you know, it's just, I would wonder if they made a movie in which a woman did have an abortion, would she be upset if they didn't bring up, well, didn't you discuss adoption and didn't you discuss keeping the baby? And
would they put in the movie the horror that the post-abortive woman goes through afterward? Would they include that? And the regret, especially when she sees new babies and things like that?
You know, this doesn't have to undermine the idea that Hollywood has a liberal agenda. They most certainly do. But what they have a bigger interest in is the bottom line. And Americans are not going to tolerate movies that support abortion. They're just not.
Well, they don't want to see it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to look at it.
And it brings up, I mean, think of the 50 million women who've had abortions in America. It brings up raw, tender feelings that they don't want to deal with in an entertainment scenario. They're not going to pay $8 to go and be reminded of something tragic. And Hollywood knows it. And it's just not going to fit the bottom line.
And when the movie finishes in the theaters, they will not buy the DVD.
That's right.
That's right. Although there are certainly members of the gay community who are pro-life, go to any large public event put on by the pro-choice gang or read any edition of the Now Times or Ms. Magazine, and you will see that the mainstream homosexual lobby and the mainstream abortion lobby are joined at the hip. This fact is creating a very interesting dilemma. In contemporary society, the so-called enlightened view is that homosexuality is not a choice, but a function of genetics. While I am far from convinced that this is true, if it is true, then it is only a matter of time before science identifies the genetic marker for homosexuality. The problem for the pro-choice gang is that they cannot afford to back away from their mantra that the reasons for abortion are no one's business except the woman who's having it. And that is what makes this an issue the pro-life movement must aggressively exploit. It is not only a good political strategy, but it is entirely appropriate for us to force the abortion lobby to publicly state that it should be legal to kill babies solely on the basis that they may turn out to be gay. This is a trap that these people created for themselves, and we have an obligation to spring it on them. Look at it this way. One of the most disgraceful aspects of the abortion holocaust is that in America today, over 90% of babies with Down syndrome are executed in the womb for no reason other than the fact that they have Down syndrome. When the time comes that this gay gene is identified, it is as certain as the sun coming up in the east that the genocide being carried out against Down syndrome children will be expanded to include those who may turn out to be gay. In fact, we may discover that parents are actually more likely to kill a potentially gay child than one with Down syndrome. Make no mistake about it. This is an issue that we have every right to use to drive a wedge between the homosexuals and the baby killers. It is called divide and conquer, and it can be very powerful. Welcome back. Dr. Hunter, we talked last month, about how we had some, we're going to have a big impact at the NAACP convention. It seems like that actually occurred.
Oh.
Tell us what happened up there.
Yes. As you know, let's just set it up for the viewers once more. Dr. Loretta Smith is a